whether we work at a tech company or consume social media, whether we are a parent, a legislator, an advertiser on one of these platforms, now's the time to pick a side. We have a choice right now. Do we allow our democracy to wither, or do we make it better?
Tonight, former President Obama sounding the alarm on the dangers of disinformation. In his lengthy speech today at Stanford, the backyard of Silicon Valley, he warned that tech platforms have been central to dividing us, spreading lies and endangering democracy as we know it. With us tonight, Clint Watts, West Point graduate, Army veteran, and former FBI special agent. He's also a distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute with a focus on terrorism, counterterrorism, social media influence, and Russian disinformation. Always good to see you, Clint. Help us get this into context. Is the situation as dire as the former president put it?
I think it is. I think one of the things we've learned over the last 6 to 7 years is that people are too often choosing the information that suits what they want to hear from people that look like them and talk like them. It's their digital tribes. And this has led to things like the erosion of trust in vaccines or public health officials. We've seen it with our election infrastructure and the integrity of the vote. We've also seen it in terms of how foreign adversaries essentially use information to manipulate us, to try and convince us things that aren't true. So across the board, I think the situation is quite dire. And as these phenomenon of disinformation, misinformation continues, it becomes very difficult to hold together the institutions of democracy, essentially to govern whenever no one has trust in it. And I think there's some polling out even today that I saw that just showed that all-time lows for trust in terms of governance and in terms of the media, and that is due in large part to social media in itself.
Well, I mean, President Obama mentioned regulation as a possible solution for some online platforms, and he also criticized their profit motive. Here it is.
These companies need to have some other North Star other than just making money and increasing market share. Fix the problem that, in part, they helped create, but also to stand for something bigger.
If these platforms incentivize misinformation for engagement, for profit, what kind of regulation prevents that?
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, Chris, is none of the solutions are particularly good on the regulatory side because the two sides of the political aisle don't agree on what the problem is. You have certain party, largely a Democratic Party, that wants to take down certain pieces of a content. You have the Republican Party saying that they're being censored while also burning books in some states. So it's hard to get consensus around what the rules would be because they don't agree what the problem is. They just all sort of point to the social media companies. So to some degree, I have sympathy for the social media companies in the sense that they're not sure what to police because no one can tell them what the rules are, what the boundaries are. However, social media companies have for far too long focused very heavily on increasing the number of users and user engagement. And what we found with user engagement is things that are sensational, taken out of context. Things that aren't exactly true tend to proliferate and spread very, very quickly. They're emotional. They engage us in ways that we don't entirely understand. And a lot of the algorithms, which the social media companies use, don't really have a test drive. They're launched out onto the public without us really knowing what happens to us as users and consumers of social media. This is all a large problem. And I think the last thing is the idea of global tech companies has come to a very quick end. The internet is already really broken up into three pieces. There's China's internet, there's the Western free internet, and there's distorted internets in between, Russia being one of those. Companies will have to pick a side. You're either a tech company that works with authoritarians or you're a tech company that supports democracy. You're going to have to pick. You won't be able to do both in the future.
Let me ask you quickly about one more thing the former president referenced. It was a recent study that paid Fox viewers to watch CNN, and it led to measurable changes in their understanding of current events. So maybe with effort, there's still hope?
It's true. There's two parts to this. It's one part algorithm. It's one part us. The algorithm plays to confirmation bias, implicit bias, And availability bias, whoever makes the most content, it's most likely to be seen. Oftentimes that's disinformation peddlers. But there's a human component to it too, which is what we tend to believe. That which we see first, that which we see the most, that which comes from a trusted source, and that which has no rebuttal. This shows you that if you are watching Fox News all the time and you just hear the same thing over and over, or if you're in Russia today and you're listening to Russian state media over and over, you will tend to believe it, especially when there's no alternative. I think that's what that switch to CNN sort of study is showing. When there's an alternative, people are open-minded, but they have to be able to see it.